The metallic voice crackled through the airport speakers, cutting through the ambient noise of travelers and rolling suitcases. Flight 27 to San Francisco has been canceled due to technical issues. Passengers, please proceed to the customer service desk for rebooking options. I stared at my phone, the screen black, lifeless. The charging port had stopped working yesterday, and now I was completely cut off. Great timing. My business trip, originally scheduled for 3 days, had already stretched into 2 grueling weeks. Meeting after meeting, presentation after presentation, and now this final insult, a canceled flight. But as I stood there in the bustling terminal, bags slung over my shoulder, an idea sparked. Maybe this wasn't such a disaster after all. Callum didn't know I was coming home early, or rather late depending on how you looked at it. He'd been alone for 2 weeks. A surprise homecoming could be exactly what we needed. I grabbed my duffel and headed for the taxi stand, a small smile playing at my lips despite my exhaustion. The cab ride through the city felt longer than usual, or maybe I was just eager to get home. Callum and I had been together for 2 years now. 2 years of morning coffee runs, lazy Sunday brunches, inside jokes that nobody else understood. He always said I was his entire world, and I believed him. Why wouldn't I? As we pulled up to my apartment building, something felt off. I couldn't quite place it. The lights were on, which was normal enough, but my gut churned with an inexplicable unease. I paid the driver, adding a generous tip, and made my way inside. The elevator was taking forever, so I opted for the stairs. My legs burned by the 3rd floor, but impatience drove me forward. When I finally reached my door, I paused, fishing for my keys. That's when I heard it. Water running. The shower. Perfect. I could slip in quietly. Maybe order some takeout. Set up a nice little welcome home scene. My smile returned as I unlocked the door and stepped inside, moving carefully to keep the element of surprise intact. I dropped my bag on the couch and moved toward the bedroom. But halfway down the hall, the sounds changed. It wasn't just water anymore. There were other noises, low, breathy, unmistakably human. And then, cutting through everything else, I heard Callum. That particular sound he made, the one I thought was reserved for intimate moments between us. My heart stopped. Every rational thought fled my mind as my feet carried me forward, toward the bathroom. The door stood slightly ajar. Callum never closed it all the way, a habit that had annoyed me before but now felt like a cruel twist of fate. I pushed it open slowly, almost hoping I was wrong, that my exhausted brain was playing tricks on me, but I wasn't wrong. Through the frosted glass of the shower door, 2 figures were clearly visible. The water cascaded over them, but there was no mistaking what I was seeing. Callum, my Callum, pressed against another man. Their hands explored each other with practiced familiarity. Their mouths locked together in a kiss that spoke of passion and, worse, comfort. This wasn't a first-time mistake. This was routine. Callum? My voice came out as barely more than a whisper, but it cut through the sound of running water like a knife. Both figures froze. Callum's head whipped toward me, his eyes going wide with a mixture of shock and horror that would have been comical under different circumstances. Theo. He practically threw himself away from the other man, fumbling with the glass door. Wait, just wait. I can explain. Explain. The word tasted bitter on my tongue. I felt remarkably calm, considering my entire world was crumbling around me. Explain what exactly? How long this has been going on? Who he is? The other man, tall, athletic, completely unbothered by his nakedness or by being caught, simply leaned against the shower wall, watching the scene unfold with detached curiosity, as if this happened all the time. As if I was the intruder here. Callum stepped out of the shower, water dripping onto the bathroom floor, reaching for a towel but not quite managing to cover himself. His hands extended toward me in a pleading gesture. Theo, please, just listen to me for 1 second. Listen? A laugh escaped me, hollow and sharp. I've been gone for 2 weeks. Was this happening the whole time? Or did you at least wait until my plane took off? His face told me everything I needed to know. The guilt was written across every feature, in the way his shoulders slumped, in the way he couldn't quite meet my eyes. This wasn't new. This had been going on for a while. I yanked off my jacket and threw it on the floor, needing to do something with my hands before they started shaking. You know what? Don't bother. I don't actually want to know. I turned to leave, but Callum was faster than I expected. His wet hand wrapped around my wrist, cool and slippery. Theo, don't walk out. Don't leave like this. I jerked my arm free, the motion more violent than I intended. Like what? Like someone who just discovered their boyfriend is a liar? Like a fool who believed every word you said? Too late for that. I already am one. I walked out of that bathroom, out of the bedroom, out of the apartment that suddenly felt like it belonged to a stranger. The stairs blurred as I descended them, the night air hitting my face when I emerged onto the street. I had no destination in mind. I just walked, letting my feet carry me wherever they wanted to go. The city moved around me, cars passing, people laughing, the world continuing its rotation as if mine hadn't just stopped. My mind felt strangely empty, a white void where thoughts should be, but my chest burned with a pain I'd never experienced before, spreading through my ribs like wildfire. Each step away from that building hammered the same question into my skull. Had I ever really known him? Or had I been so desperate to believe in us that I'd ignored every warning sign? Was I ever more than just convenient? More than just another option? The questions followed me into the night, unanswered and relentless, as I walked away from the life I thought I had and toward whatever came next. 2 days had crawled by since that night, each hour stretching into what felt like days. I'd barricaded myself in my apartment, curtains drawn tight against the world, lights off, existing in a self-imposed twilight. My phone buzzed constantly with Callum's attempts to reach me. Texts that started with "Theo, please," and escalated to "let me explain," and eventually devolved into simple "I'm sorry" messages sent every few hours. I read none of them completely. Delete. Delete. The coffee mug in my hand had gone cold hours ago, but I couldn't muster the energy to get up and make a fresh cup. I lay on the couch, wrapped in a blanket that still somehow smelled like Callum's cologne, staring at the ceiling and wondering when exactly I'd become this pathetic. My laptop sat on the coffee table, the warning email from my boss glowing accusingly even through the closed lid. Unauthorized absence from work, immediate response required. I should care about that. I should care about a lot of things. But caring required energy I simply didn't have. Was I really that boring? That insufficient? What was missing in me that drove Callum into someone else's arms? Someone else's shower? The doorbell's sharp ring made me flinch. I ignored it. Probably a delivery I didn't remember ordering. It rang again. And again. For crying out loud, I muttered, throwing off the blanket and stalking to the door. I checked the peephole first. A stranger stood there, well-dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Definitely not a delivery person. I cracked the door open just enough to see him properly. Yes, he was tall, professionally groomed, with dark hair styled with just enough product to look effortless. But it was his eyes that caught me. Gray, piercing, looking at me with an intensity that suggested he already knew far more about me than I was comfortable with. In his hands he held a leather portfolio. Theo Martinez? His voice carried authority wrapped in courtesy. My defenses went up immediately. Depends on who's asking. A slight smile touched his lips. My name is Eric Winters. I'm an attorney with Winters and Associates. I've been attempting to contact you for the past week, but you haven't responded to any of my messages. Attorney. The words sent alarm bells ringing through my fog of depression. Had Callum actually taken some kind of legal action? Was I about to be served with something? I don't need legal representation. This isn't about legal trouble, Mr. Martinez. Eric's hand pressed gently against the door as I tried to close it, not forcing it open, just preventing me from shutting it completely. This concerns an inheritance. Your uncle Silas Martinez passed away 2 years ago. He left specific instructions regarding his estate. I froze. Uncle Silas. I hadn't thought about him in years. We'd never been close. He was the family eccentric, the wealthy uncle who showed up to gatherings once every few years, made awkward small talk, then disappeared back into his private worlds. I vaguely remembered hearing about his death. Heart attack, sudden, no real details shared. An inheritance? I repeated, the words feeling foreign. Eric opened his portfolio with practiced efficiency, producing several official-looking documents. Yes. Your uncle left you his entire estate located in Northern California, along with various financial assets and investments. The total estimated value is approximately $12 million. The number hit me like a physical blow. 12 million? That couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of elaborate scam. This is impossible. I heard myself say, we weren't even close. Why would your uncle was very specific in his will, Eric interrupted smoothly. However, there is a condition attached to the inheritance. You must live on the estate for a minimum of 1 year. If you fail to meet this requirement, everything transfers to a charitable foundation. 1 year. Northern California, miles away from here, away from Callum's incessant messages, away from the apartment that now felt contaminated with betrayal, away from the life that had imploded around me. The thought landed in my mind like a life raft appearing in stormy seas. Where do I sign? Eric's gray eyes widened slightly, surprise perhaps, or maybe relief. He produced a pen from his jacket pocket with the smooth efficiency of someone used to closing deals. Right here, Mr. Martinez. And here, initial at the bottom. My hand moved almost of its own accord, signature flowing across the pages. Each stroke of the pen felt like closing a door on one chapter of my life and cracking open another. I'll handle all the necessary paperwork and legal formalities, Eric said, carefully collecting the signed documents. We can depart for California in 3 days. I'll arrange flights, transportation, and ensure the property is prepared for your arrival. Do you need assistance with packing or moving arrangements? 3 days. 72 hours until I could leave all of this behind. No, I said. I can manage. Eric studied me for a moment, his professional mask slipping just enough to reveal genuine concern underneath. Mr. Martinez, Theo, are you all right? You see, I'm fine. The words came out sharper than intended. I didn't need pity from a stranger, no matter how well-intentioned. Just tired from travel. He nodded slowly, clearly unconvinced but too professional to push. Of course. Here's my card. My direct line is on there. Call if you need anything at all before we leave. I mean that. He handed me a simple business card. Eric Winters, attorney at law, followed by contact information. Nothing flashy, nothing excessive. Professional. Yet when he'd looked at me with those gray eyes, I'd seen something beyond professional courtesy. Concern. Yes. But something else too. Curiosity. Maybe. Or recognition of someone barely holding themselves together. I closed the door and leaned against it, card in hand. The apartment felt different now. Less like a prison and more like a temporary holding cell. 3 days, and then I'd be gone. Callum's messages still buzzed on my phone, but they felt distant now, irrelevant. I looked at Eric's card again, running my thumb over the embossed letters. Whatever waited for me in Northern California, it had to be better than this. It had to be. 3 days later, I found myself in the passenger seat of Eric's Mercedes, watching the urban sprawl gradually give way to rolling countryside. The first 2 hours of our 6-hour drive passed in relative silence. Eric focused on the road, me lost in thoughts I couldn't quite organize into coherent patterns. Nervous? Eric's question broke through my mental fog. I glanced at him. Honestly, I'm not sure what I'm feeling. A week ago, I didn't even know Uncle Silas had remembered I existed, let alone that he'd left me anything. He was an intensely private individual. Eric merged smoothly into the left lane, passing a slow-moving truck, avoided publicity, kept his personal affairs strictly confidential. That's why he structured his will the way he did. Everything sealed until after his death. Minimal family involvement. Did you know him well? Professionally? Yes. I managed several of his legal matters during his final years. Eric's expression remained neutral, but something in his tone suggested there was more to that story. He was brilliant, sharp mind for business, but extremely guarded, kept people at arm's length. I nodded, watching the landscape roll past. That matched what little I remembered of Uncle Silas from childhood family gatherings. Polite but distant, present but not really there. The scenery shifted dramatically as we approached the estate. Dense forest replaced open fields and the road narrowed, winding through tall pines that seemed to close in around us. Then suddenly we rounded a curve and there it was. Massive iron gates set into stone pillars with an elaborate driveway disappearing into the trees beyond. Eric slowed the car and pulled up to a security panel. He entered a code and the gates swung open with surprising smoothness for their size. What lay beyond took my breath away. The driveway curved through manicured grounds that looked like they'd been lifted from a magazine spread. Perfectly trimmed hedges, strategically placed trees, and flower beds that somehow still bloomed despite the season. And at the end of it all stood the mansion. White stone facade gleaming in the afternoon sun, tall windows reflecting the sky. Architecture that managed to be both imposing and elegant. "This is mine?" I breathed, barely aware I'd spoken aloud. Eric brought the car to a stop in the circular drive. "For the next year, definitely. Permanently if you fulfill the terms." He turned to look at me, a slight smile playing at his lips. "Your uncle had excellent taste in real estate." I stepped out of the car slowly, trying to reconcile this palatial estate with the cramped apartment I'd left behind. The scale of it was overwhelming. This wasn't just a house, it was an entire world unto itself. Eric retrieved his briefcase from the trunk and led me to the front entrance. The heavy wooden doors were carved with intricate patterns I couldn't immediately identify, and they swung open to reveal an interior that matched the exterior's grandeur. Vaulted ceilings supported an enormous chandelier, marble floors gleamed under carefully placed lighting, and original artwork adorned walls that probably cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. "The property management company has maintained everything," Eric explained, setting his briefcase on an antique hall table. "Utilities are current, systems are functioning. You should be comfortable here." Comfortable felt like an understatement as I explored the ground floor. Spacious living areas with fireplaces large enough to stand in, a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a culinary magazine, rooms whose purposes I could only guess at. The upstairs revealed multiple bedrooms, each with its own bathroom, each decorated with understated luxury. When we returned to the entrance hall, I felt slightly dizzy from the sheer magnitude of it all. "This is overwhelming." Eric's hand landed on my shoulder, brief, professional, yet somehow comforting. "That's understandable. I'll be staying at a hotel in the nearby town for the next few days, just to ensure you're settling in properly. If you need anything." "Thank you, Eric." I met his gray eyes, surprised by the sincerity in my own voice, not just for handling the legal work, for being kind about all this. "I know it's your job, but it's not just a job, Theo." Something in his expression shifted, becoming less guarded. "I want to make sure you're genuinely okay." The moment stretched between us, charged with something I couldn't quite name. Not uncomfortable, but intense. Two people seeing each other clearly for perhaps the first time. Then Eric cleared his throat and stepped back, his professional demeanor sliding back into place, like a well-worn mask. "I should let you get settled." He moved toward the door. "Call me." A sound from upstairs cut him off. Footsteps, deliberate, unmistakable. We both froze. "Did you hear that?" My whisper barely qualified as sound. Eric's entire posture changed, becoming alert and protective in an instant. He moved in front of me, one hand gesturing for me to stay back. "Remain behind me." We approached the stairs together, Eric leading. The footsteps continued, coming from somewhere on the second floor. My heart hammered against my ribs as we climbed, each step seeming to echo far too loudly in the vast space. The upstairs hallway stretched before us, doors lining both sides. One stood slightly ajar, and the sounds were definitely coming from within. Eric approached it carefully, his body language suggesting he was ready for anything. He pushed the door open slowly. A young man stood by the window, holding an old photograph up to the light. He wore a black hoodie and faded jeans, and when he sensed our presence and turned, his eyes went wide with something between fear and surprise. His face bore several old scars, faded but visible. "Who are you?" I demanded, fear manifesting as anger. "What are you doing in here?" The young man quickly set the photograph down, raising his hands in a gesture of surrender. "Wait, please, I'm not dangerous. I wasn't stealing, I swear." Eric positioned himself between us, his voice cold and authoritative. "This is private property. You're trespassing. Start explaining or I'm contacting the authorities." The intruder pushed back his hood, revealing messy brown hair and tired eyes. "My name is Ash Carter. I worked for Silas. He told me I could stay here. He said this place was mine too." "That's impossible." I stepped forward despite Eric's protective stance. "This house has been empty for 2 years. "I know how this sounds," Ash said quickly, his voice carrying a desperate edge. "But Silas was more than my employer. He gave me sanctuary when I had nowhere else to go. And before he died, he made me promise something important. Eric's jaw tightened. Promise what? Ash looked directly at me, and something in his gaze made my blood run cold. He made me promise to protect you, Theo. He knew you'd come here eventually. And he knew that when you did, you'd be in danger. Danger from what? The word came out steadier than I felt. Ash glanced toward the window as if checking for something outside. When he looked back, his expression was grave. From the people who murdered Silas, they're still out there, and now that you're here, they'll be coming for you too. The word murdered echoed in my mind, bouncing off every rational thought I possessed. My uncle killed? It seemed impossible, absurd even. That can't be right, I said, shaking my head as if the physical motion could dispel Ash's claim. Uncle Silas died of a heart attack. Natural causes. There was a death certificate, an obituary, exactly what they intended everyone to believe. Ash interrupted, his voice carrying an urgency that made my skin prickle. But it wasn't natural. Silas uncovered something massive, something that powerful people wanted buried, so they buried him instead. Eric reached for his phone. This is getting ridiculous. I'm contacting the authorities. Don't. Ash's shout made us both freeze. He extended his hand as if physically stopping Eric. You can't involve the police. These people have infiltrated everything. Law enforcement, government offices, even legal firms. The second you make that call, they'll know exactly where Theo is. And they'll act immediately. Eric's hand hovered over his phone, his body language radiating tension and skepticism. If your story has any truth to it, why should we trust you? How do we know you're not part of their organization? Without hesitation, Ash rolled up his hoodie sleeve. His forearm was a roadmap of suffering, deep scars crisscrossed the skin. Some clearly from cuts, others unmistakably burn marks. The tissue was raised and discolored, telling a story of prolonged torment. They did this when I wouldn't reveal where Silas concealed the evidence. Ash said quietly. 3 days of interrogation. 3 days of pain. I managed to escape, but barely. My stomach churned. The scars were real, visceral proof that this wasn't some elaborate fabrication. What evidence? My voice came out smaller than I intended. Ash lowered his sleeve and took a steadying breath. Silas wasn't just a legitimate businessman. He stumbled onto a conspiracy, a network of corruption, involving senators, corporate executives, even judges. Money laundering, weapons trafficking, bribery at the highest levels. He spent years collecting proof, names, financial records, recorded phone calls, everything needed to bring them down. Eric and I exchanged glances. If this was genuine, the implications were staggering. Where is this evidence located? Eric asked, his attorney instincts kicking in despite the bizarre circumstances. Concealed somewhere in this mansion, Ash replied. Silas never told me the exact location. Said it was safer if I didn't know, but he mentioned that Theo would be the one to find it. He trusted you even if you barely knew each other. Family meant something to him. Even if he kept his distance. I pressed my palms against my temples, trying to process everything. A week ago, my biggest problem was Callum's infidelity. Now I was apparently caught in the middle of a murder conspiracy with hidden evidence and dangerous people hunting me. Eric's hand settled on my shoulder, grounding me in the present moment. Theo, we should consider leaving. If Ash is telling the truth, staying here puts you at risk. I looked into his gray eyes and saw genuine concern mixed with protective determination. He wasn't going to abandon me, even though logic dictated he should. If Uncle Silas had faith in me, I said slowly, finding strength I didn't know I possessed, then running away betrays that trust. He wanted these people exposed. That's the real reason he left me this estate. Ash exhaled with visible relief. Thank you. Thank you for believing me. Eric's expression remained serious. We proceed but cautiously, and I'm not leaving you here alone, Theo. I'm staying. That's non-negotiable. My heart skipped unexpectedly. Eric, you don't need to put yourself in danger. I'm staying, he repeated with finality. End of discussion. Ash nodded approvingly. We'll need everyone we can get. These people are ruthless and connected. The next several hours passed in methodical searching. We combed through every room, checking behind paintings, examining floorboards, tapping walls for hollow sounds. Ash explained that Silas had been paranoid about security, creating numerous hidden compartments throughout the mansion. As evening approached, we found ourselves in the library. Floor-to-ceiling shelves groaned under the weight of vintage books, and a massive oak desk dominated the center of the room. Eric worked at his laptop, researching Uncle Silas's death, while Ash maintained vigilant watch at the windows. I systematically pulled books from shelves, searching for concealed panels. "Theo, come look at this," Eric called softly. I moved to his side. His screen displayed several news articles about Uncle Silas's death. Each told the same story. Sudden heart attack, found deceased in his study. No suspicious circumstances. "Notice anything unusual here?" Eric pointed to a specific article. "The autopsy was conducted by a private medical examiner, not the county coroner, and the funeral happened within 24 hours. Body cremated almost immediately. That does seem suspicious." I agreed. "Extremely," Eric confirmed. "High-profile deaths typically trigger thorough investigations, but in Silas's case, everything was expedited. No questions asked, no second opinions sought." Ash had been listening to our conversation. "Precisely how they operate. Cover tracks efficiently. Make everything appear routine. An elderly man living alone with a stressful career? Heart attack seems perfectly logical. Nobody digs deeper." I paced the library, frustration building. "So where are these documents? We've been searching for hours." My foot landed on a floorboard that produced an odd sound, hollow, different from the solid thunk of the surrounding wood. I stopped abruptly. "Wait, did you hear that?" Eric and Ash immediately joined me. I pressed down on the spot with my foot, definitely hollow underneath. Eric grabbed a letter opener from the desk and carefully worked it into the floorboard's edge, applying gentle pressure until the board lifted. Beneath it lay a small compartment. Inside sat a metal box, dust-covered but intact. "This must be it," Ash whispered. Eric carefully extracted the box and placed it on the desk. A simple lock secured it, old and corroded. He used the letter opener as a makeshift tool, working the lock until it finally clicked open. Inside, we found multiple USB drives, a leather-bound diary, and several envelopes thick with photographs and documents. "We actually found it," I breathed, barely able to believe our success. Then came the sound that shattered our moment of triumph. A car engine outside. Headlights swept across the library windows. Ash moved to the curtains, peering out carefully. His face went pale. "We have company." I looked outside. A black SUV sat idling near the main gate. Two figures emerged, dressed in dark suits, moving purposefully toward the mansion. How did they locate us so quickly? Panic crept into my voice. "They've been surveilling the estate," Ash explained, "waiting for someone to arrive and activate the property." Eric moved with decisive speed. He closed the metal box and thrust it toward me. "Take this. We need to hide immediately." "Where?" I asked, clutching the box. Ash pointed toward a particular bookshelf. "Behind that, there's a hidden passage leading to the basement. Silas showed it to me once as an emergency escape route." We pushed against the bookshelf together. It slid smoothly aside, revealing a narrow passage with stairs descending into darkness. We slipped inside quickly, and Ash pulled the bookshelf closed behind us. The only light came from Ash's phone as we descended the stairs. The metal box pressed tightly against my chest. Above us, we heard forceful pounding on the main door. Then a crash. They'd broken in. "Search every room. They're here somewhere," a voice commanded. My heart hammered against my ribs. Eric found my hand in the darkness, his grip strong and reassuring. "Stay silent," he whispered. We reached the basement, damp, musty, barely visible even with the phone light. Ash indicated a corner where an old tunnel entrance gaped like a mouth. "This leads to the forest," Ash whispered. "Our escape route." Footsteps thundered overhead, moving through rooms, getting closer to the library. How long before they discovered the hidden passage? "Move," Eric urged, guiding me toward the tunnel entrance. "Ash, lead." We plunged into the tunnel, earth pressing close on either side. My hand remained locked in Eric's grip, his presence the only thing keeping panic at bay. Ash navigated ahead, his phone light our sole guide through the subterranean darkness. The tunnel ended at a rusted metal door. Ash shoved against it, stuck initially, then groaning open. We emerged into the forest, night air cold against our faces, darkness surrounding us completely. "Keep moving," Ash instructed. "They'll discover the tunnel soon." We ran through the forest, branches whipping our faces, the metal box bouncing against my chest. Eric's hand never released mine, maintaining our connection even as we fled through the unknown darkness. Several minutes of running brought us to a small clearing. We stopped, gasping for breath, adrenaline still coursing through our systems. We should be safe temporarily, Ash said, checking his phone for their location. There's a cabin nearby where we can take shelter for the night. I looked at Eric. His face showed determination mixed with concern. Are you all right? He asked. I nodded, though my body trembled from adrenaline and fear. Yes, because you were there. Eric squeezed my hand. In that moment, surrounded by danger, fleeing through darkness from unknown threats, I realized Eric had become more than just my attorney. He was becoming my protector, my anchor in chaos, and possibly something even more significant. Ash's cabin was modest, a single room with aging furniture that creaked under minimal weight, but it offered shelter and relative safety. After securing the door, we finally allowed ourselves to breathe. I set the metal box on the table and collapsed onto the worn sofa, my body suddenly registering its exhaustion. Eric disappeared into the tiny kitchen area and returned with a glass of water. Drink this. Take your time. I accepted the glass, noting how my hand still trembled. Eric sat beside me, his hand coming to rest on my shoulder in a comforting gesture. We're secure now. Just breathe. I met his gray eyes and saw something I'd never experienced with Callum, genuine concern that went beyond surface-level care. This was someone who prioritized my well-being, who saw me as more than convenient companionship. Thank you, I whispered, for remaining here, for not abandoning me to face this alone. Eric offered a gentle smile. I made a commitment, Theo. I don't break my word. Ash gave us space, stepping outside, presumably to check the perimeter. The cabin suddenly felt intimate with just the two of us, vulnerability hanging in the air alongside the danger we'd escaped. Eric, I said, setting the water glass aside. Why are you really doing this? You're an attorney. Your obligation ended with paperwork and property transfer. You could have left days ago. Yet you stayed, followed me into danger. I need to understand why. Eric's gaze dropped, as though he was weighing his words carefully. When he looked back at me, I saw vulnerability that matched my own, a crack in his professional armor. Because he began, his voice softer than I'd heard before. From our first meeting, I recognized something in you. I saw someone broken, hurting, struggling to maintain composure despite everything crumbling around them. And I couldn't simply file papers and walk away. I know it crosses professional boundaries, might even seem irrational, but it's not irrational, I interrupted, placing my hand over his. I feel it too. I can't name it exactly, but you make me feel secure. You make me believe I'm not as damaged as I feel. Eric's fingers intertwined with mine. You're not damaged, Theo. You're remarkably resilient. The strength you've shown is extraordinary. The space between us diminished. I could feel his breath, sense his warmth. What I'd shared with Callum had been superficial, physical attraction masking emotional emptiness. But this, with Eric, felt fundamentally different. Substantial, authentic. Eric, I started, but he pressed a finger gently to my lips. You don't need to explain, he whispered. Then, slowly and deliberately, he leaned closer. When his lips touched mine, everything else faded. The kiss was tender, careful, as though he was afraid I might shatter. I closed my eyes and surrendered to the moment, my hands finding their way to his shoulders. The kiss deepened naturally. Eric's hands moved to my waist, drawing me closer. My fingers tangled in his hair. Despite the dangerous circumstances, despite everything spiraling around us, this moment felt perfect and right. When we finally separated, both breathing heavily, Eric rested his forehead against mine. I'll protect you, Theo. That's my promise. But the moment shattered when the door burst open. Ash stumbled inside, his face drained of color and tight with panic. They've tracked us down, he gasped, surrounding the cabin. We have perhaps 5 minutes before they breach. My stomach dropped sickeningly. Eric immediately shifted into protective mode. How many? At least 4 visible, possibly more concealed. Ash replied. We need to evacuate immediately. How? Fear sharpened my voice despite my efforts to control it. Ash pointed toward the cabin's rear window. Through there. It's a significant drop, but it's our only exit. Eric grabbed my hand and retrieved the metal box. Stay beside me. We rushed to the window. Ash went first, disappearing through the opening. Then Eric climbed through, turning to help me. The landing was rougher than anticipated, but we managed. We'd emerged into a deeper, denser section of forest. Run! Ash shouted. We crashed through the undergrowth. Branches tearing at our faces and clothes. Uneven ground threatening to trip us with every step. My hand remained clasped in Eric's, his grip unwavering. Then came the gunshot. The sound ripped through the night air like thunder. I froze, my heart seeming to stop entirely. Then I saw Ash falling, clutching his leg. Blood darkened his jeans, spreading quickly. Ash! I screamed, trying to move toward him. Eric held me back. Theo, we can't stop. They'll execute us all. But he's injured. Tears blurred my vision as I struggled against Eric's restraint. Ash raised his bloodied hand, his face contorted with pain. Leave. Run. Find those documents. Expose everything. Complete what Silas started. Another gunshot cracked through the darkness. Closer this time, tree bark exploded near our position. I looked at Ash one final time, seeing determination and sacrifice in his eyes. Eric yanked my hand forcefully. Theo, now! We ran. Tears streamed down my face as guilt and fear overwhelmed me. We burst from the forest onto a road where a car's headlights approached. Eric frantically waved it down. Emergency! Please, we need assistance. Eric called out. The driver, an elderly man, stopped, confusion evident on his face. Eric rapidly explained something, offered cash from his wallet. The driver hesitated but ultimately nodded agreement. We climbed into the back seat. Eric pulled me into his arms and I buried my face against his chest, sobbing uncontrollably, leaving Ash behind. His sacrifice, the blood, it was all because of me. This isn't your fault, Eric whispered, stroking my hair soothingly. Ash made his choice. He wanted you to survive, but guilt refused to release its grip. Everyone close to me suffered. Callum betrayed me. Ash took a bullet protecting me. And Eric, he was risking everything by staying at my side. The driver dropped us at a small-town motel. Eric registered us under false names and secured a room. Once the door locked behind us, I collapsed onto the bed, emotionally depleted. Eric sat beside me, his hand tracing comforting circles on my back. We'll resolve this, Theo. I give you my word. I turned to face him, tears still flowing. Everyone around me suffers, Eric. Callum's betrayal broke me. Ash got shot because I came here. And you're endangered simply by being with me. Maybe I should surrender the documents and end this nightmare. Eric's expression hardened immediately. He cupped my face in his hands, forcing eye contact. Don't you dare give up. Ash didn't take that bullet so you could surrender. Silas didn't trust you so you could retreat. And I'm not here merely to witness your collapse. But, no exceptions, Eric stated firmly. We're united in this, and we're going to expose these criminals. For Silas, for Ash, for you. His determination, his unwavering faith in me, it provided strength I desperately needed. I nodded, wiping my tears away. All right, I whispered. Let's finish this. Eric kissed my forehead, soft and reassuring. That's the Theo I believe in. We attempted to rest that night, knowing tomorrow required new plans. We needed to secure the documents, deliver them to trustworthy authorities. But in this moment, held in Eric's arms, I found a fragment of peace. However dangerous the world had become, with Eric beside me, I could face it. I had to. Morning light filtered through the motel curtains, finding Eric already awake at the small desk, laptop open before him. I watched him for a moment, focused, determined, beautiful in ways I was only beginning to understand. Good morning, I said groggily, sitting up in bed. He turned, offering a warm smile that reached his gray eyes. Morning. Want some coffee? Desperately. Eric operated the motel's basic coffee maker, producing 2 cups of questionable quality brew. We sat together on the bed while he angled his laptop screen toward me. I contacted Silas's previous attorney, Mr. Harrison, Eric explained. He's retired now, but he provided me with an address. Silas maintained a storage unit with backup documentation. Insurance, essentially. A storage unit, I asked, processing this information. Exactly. If the original evidence was destroyed or lost, backup copies would exist. Smart contingency planning, Eric said. I glanced at the USB drives from the metal box. But we already have these. True, but the storage unit might contain additional material. Physical documents, photographic evidence, recorded audio. The more comprehensive our evidence, the stronger the case becomes. Eric reasoned. I nodded, understanding. So we're going there? Yes. But carefully, they're still actively searching for us. We left the motel, Eric having rented a different vehicle, a nondescript sedan that wouldn't attract attention. The storage facility was roughly an hour away. During the drive, I stared out the window, my thoughts drifting. Theo, Eric called, one hand on the steering wheel, the other finding mine. What's occupying your mind? Ash. I admitted honestly. What if he survived? What if he's waiting for help and we just abandoned him? Theo, Eric gently interrupted. If Ash had any chance of survival, he would have found a way out himself. He's resourceful and strong. But right now, we must focus on the mission. That's what Ash would want from us. I knew Eric was right, but guilt still gnawed at me. We arrived at the storage facility, a typical commercial operation, with rows of identical units. Eric checked Silas's unit number and led us to it. The lock was electronic, requiring a keypad code. Eric entered the numbers Mr. Harrison had provided. Click. The door rolled upward. Inside, dust-covered boxes lined metal shelving. We began systematically examining contents. One box held bank statements. Another contained photographs documenting meetings, handshakes, transactions between individuals who shouldn't have been interacting. Look at this, I said, extracting a red folder. Bold letters across its cover read, Evidence, do not destroy. Eric opened it carefully. Inside lay detailed documentation, names of politicians, corporate executives, law enforcement officials, transaction records, money trails, transcripts from recorded conversations. This is everything, Eric said, disbelief and excitement mixing in his voice. This could put these people behind bars for decades. Relief flooded through me. Finally, tangible progress. What's our next step? We deliver this directly to the FBI, Eric said, closing the folder with care. I know someone, Special Agent Morrison. He's trustworthy. We can hand this evidence to him personally. We exited the storage unit, documents carefully packed. But as we approached the car, my heart sank. Black SUVs. 3 of them, surrounding us completely. No. This can't be happening. I breathed. Doors opened simultaneously. Armed men emerging. Professional suits. Weapons drawn. From their midst stepped a man. Tall, imposing, radiating authority and menace. His eyes were calculating and cold. Well, he said, his voice smooth but threatening. Young Mr. Martinez, you've created considerable difficulties for us. Eric immediately positioned himself between us. His stance protective. You won't succeed. We have everything, evidence. Names, transactions. The leader produced a cruel laugh. Evidence? You believe we're concerned about evidence? We control the entire system. Judges, law enforcement, prosecutors, all compensated and loyal. Not everyone, Eric countered firmly. Honest people still exist who'll oppose corruption. Bold statement from someone about to die, the leader said, raising his weapon toward Eric. Wait, I shouted, pressing the folder against my chest. You want these documents? Take them. Just release us. Theo, don't, Eric started. But I continued desperately. You've already murdered my uncle. You've injured Ash. How many more lives? Take the documents and leave us alone. The leader appeared to consider this, a thoughtful expression crossing his features. Then he lowered his weapon slightly. Hand them over. Move slowly. I extended the folder toward him, Eric trying to stop me. But suddenly, sirens. Multiple vehicles. FBI vans and police cars converged from every direction, surrounding everyone. FBI. Drop your weapons. Hands in the air. Armed agents swarmed the area. My mind struggled to comprehend what was happening. How? Eric found my hand and smiled. I contacted Agent Morrison before we left the motel, gave him our location and asked him to track us. This was a carefully planned trap. The leader's face twisted with rage. In a final desperate act, he swung his weapon toward me, but Eric shoved me aside. The gunshot echoed deafeningly. Eric collapsed. Eric! I screamed, falling beside him. Blood spread across his chest, dark and terrifying. No, no, no. Eric, stay with me. Please. His eyes struggled to remain open, fighting against the pull of unconsciousness. His bloodied hand touched my cheek weakly. I promised I'd keep you safe. Don't you dare die. I sobbed, my voice shattering. I can't lose you, Eric. I love you. Do you hear me? I love you. He managed a weak smile. I love you too, Theo. So deeply. Paramedics rushed over, pulling me away from Eric's side. I rode in the ambulance, gripping his hand, praying to anyone who might be listening. God, the universe, fate, begging them to spare him. The hospital became a blur of sterile corridors and antiseptic smells. Surgery lasted hours, endless, agonizing hours. I sat in the waiting room, staring at Eric's blood on my hands, feeling numb and hollow. FBI agents came with questions and assurances that the criminals were captured, justice would be served. But I didn't care about justice. Only Eric mattered. Only Eric. Finally, after what felt like eternity, a doctor emerged. Mr. Winters is stable, the doctor announced. The bullet missed vital organs. He'll require substantial recovery time, but he's going to survive. I exhaled deeply, relief, gratitude, overwhelming emotion flooding through me. Can I see him? He's in intensive care, immediate family only. I'm his partner, I said without hesitation. Please. The doctor nodded after brief consideration. I entered the ICU where Eric lay connected to various machines, tubes running from his body. But his chest rose and fell steadily. He was breathing. He was alive. I took his hand carefully and pressed my forehead against it. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for loving me. Eric's eyes opened slightly, unfocused but aware. Theo, don't speak, I said through tears. Just rest. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. He squeezed my hand weakly but meaningfully. 3 months later, courthouse steps became a stage for media frenzy. Cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. The trial had concluded. The leader and his associates received multiple life sentences. The evidence had been overwhelming, everything exposed. Justice finally served. Eric stood beside me, fully recovered and healthy. His hand held mine securely. Justice accomplished, Eric said, smiling. Finally, I agreed, looking at him with deep affection. And Ash, miraculously, he'd survived. The gunshot had damaged his leg significantly. Painful but not fatal. He stood with us now, supported by crutches but alive and grinning. We succeeded, Ash said, embracing us both. We did, I confirmed. The three of us returned to the mansion, which now truly belonged to me. Safe, peaceful. Eric had officially moved in. Our relationship no longer hidden from anyone. On the terrace, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors, Eric and I stood together. I never imagined my life taking this direction, Eric said, his arm around my waist. Neither did I admitted, resting my head on his shoulder. I was shattered after Callum's betrayal. I believed I'd never trust anyone again. Then you appeared. Eric turned me to face him. And I thought I'd always be just an attorney. Documents, cases, maintaining professional distance. But you transformed everything, Theo. You made me feel genuinely alive. He kissed me soft, loving, promising forever. When we separated, I looked into his gray eyes and smiled. I love you, Eric Winters. I love you too, Theo Martinez, he whispered in return. In that moment, bathed in golden sunset light on the mansion's terrace, I realized this wasn't merely an ending. It was a beginning, for Eric and me, for our future together, and I was no longer afraid, because with Eric beside me anything was possible.